Good morning. We're happy to have you here this morning. As you take your seats, I would like to just welcome you. I'm Susan Rugh, Dean of Undergraduate Education, for another few weeks. And I'm happy to tell you that GE Academy is back. Very happy to have GE Academy back. After 2 years of COVID mandated isolation, we can gather together, and thank you for making time to attend today. We're very appreciative today for the presence of Russ Oscarson, and now I'm trying to find him. Rich. That's his father is Russ. All right, I'm sorry, he's up there. This is Rich Oscarson. Thank you so much. Time to retire. He is currently Dean of the McKay School of Education, and he'll be taking over from Associate Academic Vice President John Rosenberg on July 1, and we've already got him at work on GE. So thank you for coming. And I want to give a thank you to the brilliant Shauna George and the staff in the office. They're probably outside, so we'll do this again. I hope you enjoyed the aviation themed decor and music, and you have to be sure and have some of the aviation themed snacks. So watch for that. I especially want to thank Ryan Hunsaker, our student who led this effort. Our theme today, as you can see, is charting a new course. And I hope you enjoy all these ways that we are trying to get this theme across to you today. So in truth, we have been charting a new course for some time. And to quote a Virginia Slims ad of 1968, we have come a long way, baby. At the GE Academy in summer 2017, we launched an effort to reform GE with the image of a moonshot. In a dramatic presentation, Associate Dean Patty Freeman asked us to consider the audacious goal to create a new GE program through moonshot thinking. It was exciting, it was breathtaking, and like the moonshot in 1969, seemed almost impossible to achieve. Getting to the moon, redesigning GE took much longer than we expected. In fact, we're not done. The next year at Academy, you created prototypes out of pipe cleaners, toothpicks, and modeling clay. Does anyone remember that? Yes. I'm sorry we destroyed the models, but we have pictures. In the fall, we held faculty design thinking workshops, known informally as the Post-it sessions. Followed in 2019 by a long summer of designing by a committee headed by Stan Benfeld. Stan, where are you? There's Stan. Thank you, Stan. Now directing the Kennedy Center. Who can forget those 4 models? Blue, green, magenta, and purple. In that fall, we opened up the GE website for your submissions, your ideas, and you weighed in on how preposterous, how outlandish the ideas were. But that was the point. How many ideas could we generate? And how could we take those ideas to make something, well, GE looking? The pandemic hit in 2020, just after the second GE committee, which we dubbed GEDC2, took over with administration designed constraints. Thank you to the administration. But we were undaunted. We adopted the metaphor of flagship BYU and taking seriously President Kimball's advice to take out all the old planks as they decay and put in new and stronger timber in their place. We Zoomed all spring and summer with various committees creating pieces and parts and finally models. GEDC2 had some big fights, made some tough decisions, and compromised to create a reasonable looking model. At its heart was a shift in philosophy from content to competencies. So I won't dwell on the often tedious summer of 21 GE debates, no wonder I'm retiring, in University Curriculum Council, but the proposal was approved with an overwhelmingly positive vote. Thanks to Chip's presentation skills, he would go home at night and rewrite and come back the next day and rewrite. We were able to draw the support of the deans and the associate vice presidents enough to move it up to where it is now under consideration in the AASB. And we're counting on Rich Osgothorpe to get it out of the ASB for us. So no small task. So if you think of it in these terms, look how far we've come. With your help, we have a GE proposal that is tailored to the needs of today's students, not the needs of students in 1975. You can immediately see that the plan is tightly aligned with the BYU mission and aims. Thanks to the year-long work of the FGEC, the requirements are designed for continual improvement through assessment. It is unique to BYU in its grounding in the gospel and Brigham Young's admonition. Brother Mazer, I want you to remember that you ought not to teach even the alphabet or the multiplication tables without the Spirit of God. Truly, the proposal embodies the spirit and letter of the second century address, our charter for the future. As President Kimball said in 1975 of the efforts to improve general education at the time, these changes do not happen free of pain, challenge, and adjustment. We realize that a new GE would require challenge and adjustment, and we hope to take the pain out of it by supporting you. We have initiatives in the form of workshops, classes, research funds, and general hand-holding to help you retool your courses and create new ones. We were recently reminded by Elder Holland that BYU is primarily an undergraduate teaching institution, and you represent the best of those teachers. As President Kimball emphasized in his address, while the discovery of new knowledge must increase, there must always be a heavy and primary emphasis on the quality of teaching at BYU. Quality teaching is a tradition never to be abandoned. It includes a quality relationship between faculty and students. Carry these over into BYU's second century. I'd like now to have an opening prayer by Julie Swallow, and then I'll introduce the rest of the program. Thank you, Julie. Julie is with CTL. We're really happy to have her here.
Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for the opportunity to meet together today as colleagues and friends. We're grateful for the many hands that came together to produce this activity and for all the people who have participated over many years to consider the direction that general education should go. We're grateful and humbled by the opportunity that we have to participate in educating all those who come to this campus. We ask that you to bless us, to be joyful in that endeavor and to be curious and to be inspired by the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Julie. So now just a little bit on a personal note. Many of you know that I've been working on this idea since I became dean in 2016. And as I conclude my 6-year term, I've been reflecting on the past 6 years. And I have to say, I never thought it would take this long. I have all these things in my file that say this would be implemented 2019 and 2020. Now, I don't know. I've given up taking bets. But I really wouldn't have it any other way. I think the journey we have been on has been a strong journey, a journey with some obstacles that we overcame. And I want to thank all of you for the many ways in which you have participated in this great effort, and especially for teaching your students in your general education courses. And I want to thank my associate deans for their support and the way we collaborated to move this along. A special thanks to Chip Oscarson for joining me 2 years ago in a vision of a better GE for our students and his unceasing efforts to bring this about. So I feel we've achieved our goal to redesign GE, and I have put in my all as I ran my lap in the relay. Soon I will pass the baton over to the new dean, biology chair and Professor Rick Gill. Rick is supremely qualified to take this over the finish line, and to oversee implementation. And I wonder if Rick you'd like to say a few words.
Well, it's fantastic to be with this collection of faculty, folks who are so committed to our undergraduate students. And really all I would like to say is an enormous thank you to Susan and for the work that she's done, right? That it's been a long time coming, and the vision of a new GE that will meet the needs of our undergraduate students, that's specifically tailored to this rising generation, is an enormous one. And she, along with those that have worked with us, has done an amazing job. And as we look at the new GE that's moving forward towards adoption, what you see is the possibility of a really strong narrative where our students see in their general education an essential part of their education. And that in large part comes out of the vision of the leadership that's existed. And so maybe you join me in thanking Susan for all of her time and her work here.
Thank you. I'd like to turn the time over to Chip Oscarson for his presentation.
All right. Well, I'm really excited to be here with you today. I'm excited to have an in-person GE Academy. Hopefully that's a good idea. For those of you who don't know me, I was appointed the associate dean here in undergraduate education a couple of years ago now. I come from comparative arts and letters. Interdisciplinary humanities and Scandinavian studies is my home department. I'm a Scandinavianist by training. I work in literature and film. I realized when they asked me to do this, I reflected a little bit, and I realized that I've taught a section of a general education class almost every single semester that I've taught at BYU. I've been here for 17 years. And almost every single semester I taught a general education class in one form or another. I've taught in 5 different requirements of general education. So in this way, I've been around the block, but nothing really prepared me for the opportunities that came here. And it's really been a privilege to work with Susan and Spencer Magleby and Phil Rash in first year experience, now Bryce Bunting, who just took over for Phil, and with John Rosenberg as well. They've really had great vision for what needs to happen. Anecdotally, I heard that when this is through a couple of people, so it's folklore, I'm sure. But President Worthen supposedly was talking with some other university presidents, and when he was starting out, and one of the pieces of advice that he was given is don't reform GE. It is notoriously difficult, that today we have a little over 100 participants registered for the GE Academy. You represent just a fraction of all the people who actually teach in GE. It's a large number of faculty who are invested, and you are deeply invested. You are good at what you do. You spend a lot of time preparing the classes and thinking about student learning. And so for people to come and then ask you to change that, it's a big ask, and we realize that. And maybe it's why it only happens every few decades. It's a really important part of our students' education, right? Between 1/3 and 1/4 of our students' classes come from general education. And so what happens here is really important for who they are and what they are when they leave the university. We all come from different backgrounds, and this has been an important part of the GE design process. What I'm going to do this morning for the next few minutes is I'm going to talk a little bit about the vision for new GE. I'm actually going to introduce a little bit of our program as well, but I'm going to talk about the vision for New GE. We're going to take some time for you to be able to ask some questions about it. I'm not going to walk through in a really kind of detailed step-by-step. I'll give you an overview and kind of the bigger vision. It's not approved as of yet, that we're optimistic about its approval, but there are ongoing discussions. There's things that certainly we could be asked to change with it. But I want to give you a sense of the direction that it's going. And the new direction that we're talking about today isn't just about the specifics of the proposal either. It's about where we would like to see GE moving regardless of the proposal and the kinds of things that we think are important for us to consider when we're thinking about our student learning. During the design process, one of the things I was really struck with right away when I began and really thrilled about, was the ability to work with people from across campus. I knew people from my college fairly well and have enjoyed those interactions with colleagues, many of whom I see here today. But what was really exhilarating was this opportunity, in some ways for the first time, to work across the university at the scale that I was working, where I was meeting people from literally every single college. And while it was exhilarating on the one hand, it was also really frustrating on the other. And as coming from the humanities regularly, I had to have counseling sessions with Spencer Magleby, our associate dean over honors from engineering, to help me understand what I was missing, that what was I not seeing, and why were these objections being raised to this issue, or why were people talking about like this. And it really took thinking in a different kind of way, and I feel like my thinking has been expanded because of that. The proposal that we have is not the product of any one person. As brilliant as Susan is, as farsighted as John Rosenberg is, this is not the product of any one person. It is really an intensely collaborative effort, and I think that's its strength. There was a lot of counseling together. Susan mentioned some of these councils, how they took place, the amount of time they took to reach some form of agreement. And the reason for that is that we didn't just operate on a 50% plus one kind of principle, that we worked for consensus whenever possible. We didn't always achieve unanimity, but we got close in a lot of cases, and the proposal is definitely better because of it. Let's see, I need to be able to advance my slides here. One of the things that it made me think about is Paul's talking about the church, and specifically the gifts of the Spirit in 1 Corinthians 12, where he talks about, for by one Spirit we are all baptized in one body, whether we be Jews or Gentiles, whether we be bond or free, and have been all made to drink into one Spirit. For the body is not one member, but many. If the foot shall say, because I am not the hand, I am not of the body, is it therefore not of the body? And if the ear should say, because I am not the eye, I am not of the body, is it therefore not of the body? Right? We could begin to fill in here. If the engineer was to say, right, I am not a humanities, is it not of the body? If the social scientist, the historian, was to say, I am not, a nurse, is it not of the body? Right? That this is part of being a university, and the strength of a university is the diversity that exists in how we see the world, not only who we are and what we bring to the university, but then what we're trained. But now are they many members, but yet one body? This is the strength of the proposal, is that it came from these different perspectives, and we're going to dwell on this somewhat as a theme today. This idea of diversity and the way that we can draw strength from that, and how general education can be strengthened from it. Let me, at this point, pause and talk about a few housekeeping items before I continue with this. You all should have a copy of the schedule, which is probably too small to read here, but you should have a copy in your hands. We're going to be here together for a couple plenary sessions this morning. And first, we're going to be talking about new directions in general education. Then we're going to invite Jacob Rugh to come and talk a little bit about diversity, unity, and belonging at the university and in general education. That's going to segue into a panel discussion of some of these efforts from around campus. At 11, we'll be taking a break. And Shauna and her team have provided generously for us. You'll find refreshments throughout the building, many of which are themed in different ways to match this. And it's not just because we're giving you peanuts, by the way, right? That is not the intention. At 11:15, we'll be in the first breakout sessions. Now, we asked for you all to register for a breakout session. That is not set in stone. It was only to give us a good idea of how many to expect in different rooms. But our first breakout sessions are all built around the theme of diversity, unity, and belonging, where each of these workshops will be talking about diversity in a different kind of way. Now, if you are just absolutely stuck in terms of deciding between a couple of these workshops, we are going to be recording them and making them available if you can stand watching another Zoom recording. That's the catch, okay? But there's an opportunity, of course, to be there and to be able to interact and participate. We have a member of the FGEC will be hosting each of these sessions. You'll recognize members of the FGEC because they're wearing wings. Again, Sean has thought of everything, okay? So if you have questions about things, you can ask someone with wings on, and they might know a little bit more about some of these things than others, okay? You'll notice on the slides in the foyer too, there's an introduction. If you don't know who your FGEC, that is the Faculty General Education Council representative is from your college, you should. And that's, you'll find that on the screens downstairs, kind of rotating. That's the first breakout session. Then at 12:10, we'll be doing lunch out on the lawn. And the lunch is being provided by Beehive Catering today. And you have a choice of chicken, cordon bleu, and steak salad. And then there's also some special diet options out there as well. Shauna, did I get that about right? Okay, so there should be plenty of options for everyone. By the way, thank you for spicing up our lives a little bit in your comments in your dietary restrictions. There were some real gems that were included there. And to the person who said that their only dietary restriction was not hot dogs, we have accommodated for you today. After you finish eating, we invite you for some competition. That we have some gliders out there that you can compete for real prizes. You can compete either in the distance competition or in the accuracy competition. Or if you just want to play around with one of these gliders, you can do that too, okay? So hopefully that'll be a little bit clearer, and our staff will help direct you there over lunch if you want to throw around one of these gliders out on the lawn. After lunch, we'll be reconvening in breakout sessions again. The afternoon breakout sessions is around the theme of innovating general education. Some of these have to do with things that are independent from the proposal that's being considered right now. Things like discussion about BYU Online and hybrid teaching that is going to be taught by Carolyn Andrews. John Austenson is talking about information literacy across the curriculum. This is something that, regardless of a new GE, is something that we should be thinking about, as well as assessment. Joseph Hanks and Shiloh Howland are going to be talking about better assessment in the classroom. But then Jenny Pulsifer, a member of our FGC and also a member of the GE Design Committee, will be talking about explorations courses, which is an important part of the proposal, which we'll get to here in just a second. Afterwards, we'll be taking a short break, and then we'll finish up the day here back in this room with best 5 minutes of class, where we asked for some good examples of things you do that's successful in the classroom, and we'll be going kind of rapid fire through a bunch of those, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, so that's what the day looks like. I'll have a few things to say this afternoon about the stipend that we've promised you and some of the things that we're going to ask you to do in terms of a survey and things like that. But we'll get to that later this afternoon. All right. With housekeeping now aside, I want to come back to talking a little bit about new GE. Okay. So our theme that you've already noticed is that of travel. In fact, we started to think after we were talking along these lines how often we've come back to different forms of travel through this whole process. At one point in time, we were building boats and tearing out planks and burning boats, and we've kind of gone through the metaphors. We did the moonshot. I don't know that there's a clear progression in our transport, but when we were thinking about how we might give this discussion a theme today, our minds came to the really wonderful iconography of mid-20th century travel, right? And this is kind of what inspires some of the work that our design team, put together here. And it was a moment of new possibility, right? Following the devastations of the Second World War. There were enormous technological innovations that came out of that horrible experience that improved the lives of a lot of people. There's new connectivity as people began to travel in new sorts of ways, that travel became available to people who had never imagined that they might be able to reach these new places and to have these new kinds of experiences. And for us, there's likewise great possibilities that lie in front of us as we face the second half of the second century of BYU. As Susan mentioned, the GE proposal passed the University Curriculum Council last fall and is currently under discussion with the ASB, and we're optimistic about what will happen. But there's other ways that we need to be thinking about charting a new course within general education as well. One of the things that we gave you as a gift here today is a tag, right? That you can put on your keys or whatever it is you don't want to lose. We thought about giving compasses, but we kind of realized that would be completely pointless. This idea of kind of finding your way, kind of keeping the true north, but instead we opted for these tags, which we thought might be a little bit more useful. And the idea behind this is that as you travel, as you venture out, you need to remember what's most important, right? You need to be able to find the things that are most important. And in our case, it's the excellence of an undergraduate education, which is really key. This is an education that's grounded in the liberal arts, if we're to talk about this in a more general sense. A lot of universities have this as a goal, right? That the kinds of proficiencies that a student develops by studying math and science and understanding how to learn things about the world and literature, being able to join the human conversation and understanding who and what they are, that these are really important elements. But that in and of itself isn't enough, right? In addition to this, that we have another dimension here at BYU, in that our commitment to a liberal arts education is inflected by our understanding that we see the sacred through the secular, that there's not an easy divide between these two things. President Kimball used the metaphor of being bilingual. And this is, I think, a powerful metaphor, being able to speak two languages. But in some ways, it also implies a kind of separation, and there's a limitation to that metaphor. That what we ask of our instructors is something that, in some ways, is even more tightly fused together. President Kimball didn't have the benefit of talking about localization, right? Of this kind of study of understanding a culture so well and adapting and kind of fusing things together. That might be a productive metaphor for us. Some of you might have noticed in recent months a little bit more concerted effort to brand general education here at BYU. Things like GE Academy are important for this, right? That we come together and that we're reminded of a different kind of community. That, you know, it's a little bit easier for us to see that community within our departments, and we forget sometimes that the things that we teach belong to a larger conversation at the same time. We've started a monthly newsletter, which hopefully you've been receiving. And in this monthly newsletter, we let you know about opportunities going on either through general education workshops that we're running or that our partners like Center for Teaching and Learning are putting on. And the reasons for this is to really help to give the sense of the cohesiveness of general education. And this is one of the things that we need to refine. That our current general education program is almost 50 years old. And there's a tendency within general education programs to siloize, to kind of, you know, they find their separate corners of the university, and they and these courses, these requirements cease to speak to each other. They cease to be integrated with each other. And it can even get to the point, and I'm sure that this is not the case in your class. In fact, the fact that you're here today suggests that it's not, but that you even forget that you're teaching a class that is a general education class, right? That has learning outcomes that are associated with the general education program. So this is an opportunity for us to revisit this and to rethink who and what we are and why we're teaching the things we are and why we're doing them the way that we're doing them. Together with Joseph Hanks, who's our assessment specialist here in undergraduate education, we conducted student focus groups. They were randomly sampled about 120 students, GE students from every college on campus that we talked to in a series of focus groups. What these students had to say about general education was telling, and maybe even somewhat predictable. They generally agreed that GE was probably important, but they had a hard time articulating sometimes why that was. Breadth, they had a sense that breadth was good. Some of them found new interests by taking general education classes. They all found some kind of benefit or value of it. But they really, as I said, they sometimes had trouble articulating why this breadth was good, other than they'd been told that it was. There was a real resistance on the part of the students to learn things that if they didn't understand the relevance of what they were being taught. That was a really important thing for them. They wanted to see things in context. Of course, they complained when their general education courses were harder than their major courses. But the recurring theme that came back is, and you'll probably recognize this, is thinking about general education in terms of a series of hoops that you had to jump through, right? Very few of these students had an idea of how all of these things really fit together. And I worry that it's not just students who have this attitude, but it's even us as faculty and as advisors, that we sometimes, in the way that we talk about general education, well, get your generals out of the way, right? As opposed to seeing it as an opportunity to really grow and change. And this is part of what rethinking general education, charting a new course, allows us to do, to try to break apart the siloization, that we teach these requirements in isolation, complete isolation from other requirements and from the whole project. This lack of awareness that one might even be teaching a general education class, of course, leads to a serious lack of alignment. That if you don't know what the learning objectives are, you're probably not going to be achieving them, right? So this is an opportunity to reset expectations and better alignment, better assessment that can lead to even better alignment. Okay, so to come back to the, I'm gonna jump ahead here a little bit. The American Association for Colleges and Universities puts out this statement. They're kind of the go-to in terms of the gold standard for general education. What education should be. They talk about it in terms of liberal education here. Why is liberal education important? It's an approach to learning that empowers individuals and prepares them to deal with complexity, diversity, and change. It provides students with broad knowledge of the wider world, as well as in-depth study in a specific area of interest. A liberal education helps students develop a sense of social responsibility, as well as strong and transferable intellectual and practical skills, such as communication, analytical and problem-solving skills, and demonstrated ability to apply knowledge and skills in real-world settings. This is a really helpful definition for thinking about this, but as I suggested earlier, this probably doesn't go far enough. It's interesting, though, to think about the connection between this and something like Doctrine and Covenants 88, right? Where we're given this really expansive vision in the early church for what education should be. And it always strikes me, this revelation is given at the time of the School of the Prophets in Kirtland. And it just really strikes me that the revelation is given at a time when the church is relatively small. The membership is, relatively speaking, uneducated, on the living on the frontier. And what is the Lord asking them to do, right? He's asking them to undertake the study of languages and cultures and science and math in a way that you couldn't begin to imagine how these farmers would ever make use of these things in their everyday life, right? But he gives them the commandment that they should teach one another the doctrines of the kingdom. Teach ye diligently, and my grace shall attend you, that you may be instructed more perfectly in theory and principle and doctrine, in the law of the gospel, in all things that pertain unto the kingdom that are expedient for you to understand, of things both in the heaven and in the earth and under the earth, things which have been, things which are, things which must shortly come to pass, things which are at home, things which are abroad. The wars, the perplexities of nations, and the judgments which are in the land, and the knowledge also of countries and of kingdoms. Okay. When I read this previously, I always thought about the different talents that were maybe among the early saints. Particularly, it was the men in this case, but I think it would apply to the women as well. You have a talent in astronomy, you should develop that for the church. You have a talent in literature, you should develop that for the church, right? And this kind of thing. But that's not what's actually going on here, right? Everyone is being asked to do everything, which is kind of interesting. And the reason for it is given in verse 80, right? He says that ye may be prepared in all things when I shall send you again to magnify the calling wherein I have called you and the mission with which I have commissioned you. And there's an interesting echo, I think, in what we just read from the AAC&U about the way that this kind of education is to prepare our students. Now, for the AAC&U, they're thinking about resiliency in terms of change, kind of preparedness, maybe even for careers, ability to contribute in the civic realm. We go a little bit beyond that, right? That we understand that there's a spiritual dimension that needs to be attended to that is not separate from those other things. And our students, when they emerge from the university here, they're going to be going into a world, they're going to be taking jobs that don't exist right now, right? That they need that kind of resiliency, but even more, they need to be prepared for the spiritual opportunities that they're going to be faced with later in life. Their opportunities to not only grow personally, but to serve in their communities and to serve the church. And they have no idea about the mission that they're going to be called to, whether that be a literal mission or a figurative one. That's what this is all about. Now, the BYU mission statement makes really clear what the mission of the university is, right? To assist university individuals in their quest for perfection and eternal life. This is one heck of a learning outcome, right? And one that's probably a little bit difficult to assess. So we break this down into smaller parts. But we talk about the development of the total person, right? That they be able to meet these personal challenges and change, but also bring strength to others, right? Service, lifelong learning, the task of home, family life, social relationships, civic duty, and service to mankind. All students should be taught the truths of the gospel of Jesus Christ. All relationships within the BYU community should reflect devout love of God and a loving, genuine concern for the welfare of our neighbor. Gospel encourages the pursuit of all truth, and that they should benefit from a broad university education, that there's not a division between, there's the spiritual over here and the secular over here, that these need to absolutely be fused one with the other, okay? So we've taken our lead in designing the new GE from the BYU mission and aims. The 4 aims of BYU education, you recognize these: it's to be spiritually strengthening, intellectually enlarging, character building, and lead to lifelong learning and service. Why? That they may be prepared in all things, right? That they will be ready for how the Lord needs to use them, how the Lord wants to change. Now we have this mark. BYU branding has made sure that this is not a logo, right? That this is, that you have a mark. So one of the other pieces of swag that you were given today, you're given a bag and you're given a pin, okay? And this pin has on it the tree of wisdom, the sculpture that many of you walked by as you came in today. And that we're using this as kind of an emblem, the mark of our GE Academy for what it symbolizes. Of course, when I was growing up, I thought it was this kind of abstract, funky Y that you know could be upside down or not. But of course, it's a little bit more complex than that. Frank Nakos, who is the sculptor, was actually a student when he came up with this. He was an MA student or MFA student, perhaps, when he first came up with this, and was dedicated by the class, the graduating class of '75, to commemorate the centennial. Of course, it used to stand out in the quad between the ASB and the library. And the way that he described the sculpture, I'll read to you. He said, this is according to Nakos. One view of the sculpture, you see it branching down and out like a root system. You can kind of see that, get a sense of that in this image here. At the school, you're supposed to be gaining knowledge, and roots and knowledge being able be gaining knowledge and roots, and the knowledge being able to be offered by the university. The other part is that we're supposed to grow out, branch out, and bear fruit and go forth to serve. I think that this is a really wonderful image, right, of the tree, where you have both the branches, the roots of what you're to gain from the university, that then turn into these branches, what students do as they leave the university. So this pin can be a little bit of a reminder of that to you, what that symbolizes, and general education's role, kind of right in the middle of this in a lot of ways, right? That it's between the roots and the branches, that we want to help our students be able to take advantage of what's here, but then also see the possibilities and be prepared to serve. Okay, if you trace through the general education learning outcomes, you can see the full proposal there at ge.byu.edu. You see how they track the mission and aims of the university in fairly explicit sorts of ways. From these general program learning outcomes, we've come up with the specific requirements. And as you came in, there was a handout where you have both this overview as well as a catalog style entry of this. I'll just highlight a couple of things, and then we'll take some of your questions for a few minutes. The real heart of the program is this arts and sciences core, where you have disciplinary perspectives classes, which are classes that are meant to be taught very much like a lot of our classes are now. They're an introduction to a discipline. They're kind of an overview driven a little bit more by the content. We have a lot of classes within general education. There are also service classes for majors that have specific content that students need to be able to progress in their major. And this is where a lot of those classes will continue to reside. And I hasten to make the point that there's really not any class that is currently taught in general education that will not have a place in the future general education as well. Now, the demand for some of these classes will shift around, and that's something that needs to be taken into consideration, but there's really no class that won't have a place. What's new within this arts and sciences core are these explorations classes, and these are inquiry-driven classes, classes that are formed around a question, and by virtue of being formed around a question, they're not strictly disciplinary. They're not just about introducing the basics of the discipline, rather showing how the discipline can be used to answer important questions or to address important questions. As the graphic suggests here, there's 3 varieties of these in the same way that there's 3 varieties of perspectives classes. A lot of the other things in this you'll recognize, right? First year writing, advanced writing, these will continue as they are now, although we're proposing that all students be required to take first year writing. We're adding a quantitative reasoning, a new quantitative reasoning requirement that again is universal. Currently, students can either do a foreign language or they can do an advanced quantitative option, usually statistics or calculus. Within the new general education, we're proposing that all students take an advanced quantitative reasoning. This doesn't mean that they all have to take calculus. This doesn't mean that they all have to take stats. There's about 17% of students right now that don't take either one of those. And for those students, there'll be a new course developed that's about using quantitative information to understand the world and to make arguments about it. It's again can be an inquiry-driven class. Other things that you'll recognize as being familiar is American heritage. This is an important part of our teaching civics, right? And teaching our students to be civically minded and engaged. That will continue. As well as a requirement that all students need to take at least 3 credits of a foreign language. Many of our students currently do this. About 2/3 of our students currently do this, but this will give people who have had the opportunity to learn language, whether it be through schooling or mission experience, to be able to make that part of their general education experience, to see the world through another's eyes. And it's an important part of our even our diversity requirement, I think. There are other things that are embedded within this, that one of these perspectives or explorations classes needs to be designated as diversity, unity, and belonging class. This is a class that isn't necessarily dedicated completely to the question of diversity, unity, and belonging, but has a significant component that invites students to reflect on some of these important issues, which we're going to be discussing here in just a couple minutes. Likewise, one of these classes needs to be designated as a global outlook class. That is a class that focuses on the world from a perspective other than other than kind of from the American culture. So that this can be a class that is taught in English, but that engages different perspectives in a different kind of way. Lastly, and one of the things I'm most excited about is that we're asking all incoming first-year students during their first year to take what we're calling a first-year seminar. That's one of the explorations classes that's in an envelope together with first-year writing and a religious education class. There's a lot of benefits to having students come to the university in a cohort in this kind of way. And if you want to know all the details about that, you can talk to Bryce, who's done a lot of research about this. The idea is to help students to better transition to the university, and especially those students who tend to lack the resources to help them to do that. This is a logistical challenge, to be sure, but something that will be well worth our investment in effort. So at this point, I'm going to end, and we have just a couple of minutes that we can take some questions. Let me head off a couple of questions, maybe from the get-go. The first thing, one of the first questions is, well, when is this going to happen? And of course, the answer to that is I have absolutely no idea. That we hope that this is going to be approved sooner rather than later. And when it is approved, we'll determine the date about when we can actually implement it and start it. The implementation of it will happen that the students who start after a given date will be on the new general education program, but the ones who started before that date will finish, and there will be a lot of overlap and a lot of equivalencies that we have to work out to make that happen. If the proposal is approved within the next few months, we're hopeful that we might still be able to make fall of 2024 implementation of the incoming class will start this, but that is up for discussion. So that's not anything that's at all set in stone. Also, if any of you are interested, I am more than happy to come and visit individual programs and departments to talk through what this means for your program, and to consider what some of the options about how you might adapt to the new general education. Okay, with that having been said, and maybe I should also mention that there's great resources online. There's a frequently asked questions. You can find the whole proposal there. What kinds of questions do you have? We can take about 5 minutes to answer some questions now, and of course you can find me during the breaks. Michael. 36 hours. It depends on how you fulfill the global outlook requirement. If you take that as a separate 3 credits, or if you take it as one of the disciplinary perspectives or explorations that you're already taking. That's the difference. Excellent question. What's the role of adjuncts? We are not proposing that there be any change necessarily in the role of adjuncts with this. This is a decision that has to be made by individual programs and departments, how they want to use adjuncts. Now, having said that, there is a challenge that's embedded within this, and that is that the explorations classes require some new development. Adjunct faculty don't have the same kind of bought out time, so to speak, to develop courses. General education has some resources, as well as we'll ask colleges to produce some resources to help adjuncts if they want adjuncts to be teaching those courses. But there will be just as many. In fact, in some cases, there'll be more opportunities in that we need to increase our instruction of first-year writing by about 25%. So if you're a writing instructor, this is a good time for you, because there'll be a demand. Francesca? Yeah. So talk with John Austenson, who's here somewhere. John's up here. He's in charge of first year writing. If you know of adjunct instructors, just to repeat the question a little bit, that might be interested in teaching first year writing, John is the person to contact, and he'll tell you what you need to do. Yeah, great. There might be a few advisors with us today. I know we were in touch with several. Certainly let them know about this. We will be doing a separate, historically, we have done separate advisors meetings, and now that COVID is not passed, but somehow we live with COVID differently, that we plan to do this. For the advisors, we're going to probably wait till we have a more clear signal about approval. But absolutely, our advisors are really important partners. They're the ones who talk to students the most about these things. They're in a lot of cases better informed than even faculty about what the requirements are. And so absolutely we need them on board, and we'll be doing information meetings in individual colleges, but also collected like this with them. Absolutely. So the documents that you're referring to that have the requirement, the learning outcomes for the requirement, are what we refer to as foundation documents. And you'll find those on our website for the current GE program. We're currently developing these also for the new GE, because we can't wait. I mean, it's a little bit of, FGC knows this, it's been a little bit of a moving target as we get new direction. We have to go back and kind of change these, but we can't wait for that because it takes a long time to develop those documents. And we've made some good significant progress. Those are the ones that set the bounds on what fits within the requirement and not. And the process that we'll go through for the future GE will be very similar to the current GE in that if there's a class that a department would like to approve, they'll submit that to the Faculty General Education Council for consideration. And we will be specific on these foundation documents. And you're going to be given a sneak preview of one of these as part of the survey following this. That's the document that will specify what the course needs to do. We want them to be appropriately capacious, right? That they need to be able to incorporate a certain diversity of courses, but there are also bounds that we feel like a general education course should do this, that, or the other. Certain courses and disciplinary perspectives, I mean, they can be very wide ranging, but if they, for example, also want to be a diversity, unity, and belonging course, there's going to be some additional learning outcomes which will be more restrictive about what needs to happen in that class, that we need to see evidence of this kind of learning, for example. Does that answer your question? Everything will be reevaluated, but the expectation is that that should not be a big problem. Yeah. Yeah, as I said, pretty much everything that's in GE we anticipate should be able to carry forward in one form or another into the new GE. Yeah. Other questions? Yes. Could some of these classes be taught in a foreign language? Yes, we think so. I speak for the FGC a little bit quickly, but we think so, yes. I know one of the questions has come up, particularly with advanced writing. Could a foreign language be an advanced writing course? That's something that I think needs to be considered, because we would like to see advanced writing moving out into the disciplines more and more, as opposed to there being just a few catch-all advanced writing classes. The research suggests that that's much more effective if the resources exist. Yes. To the very good question. To both. When it comes to diversity, unity, and belonging, this is a sensitive topic, as I'm sure you are all aware, right? And as we'll hear a little bit about, it can be fraught. How we deal with it, we need to deal with it carefully. So for global outlook, it's attached to the class. For diversity, unity, and belonging, it's also attached to the class, although we ask as part of this that any instructor teaching a diversity, unity, and belonging class do some training with general education. And so with specifically with that, and that's that requirement in the first year seminar, that we ask that there be some special training with anyone who's teaching. Yeah, great question. Okay, I'm around through the day. I have both a name tag and wings. So you know you can ask me questions. I am more than happy to talk about this with you. I want anxiety levels to be low with this, but change always induces a certain amount of anxiety. I realize that. I think there are great opportunities for every department who participates in general education, who wants to participate in general education, and we want to make that happen. As Susan indicated, that there will be more information coming when we have official approval about some of the mechanisms that general education will provide to help faculty to develop these courses. But we're really excited about what it's going to mean for student learning. And I just want to return to the idea that there is an integration that's going on with these different requirements, that although they look in a lot of ways like what we're already doing, that there's a kind of integration that's that's happening, that these courses are beginning to speak to each other in a new kind of way. And there's a new kind of coherence. General education is a program. It's a program in the way that the majors that you also teach in are programs, that they have goals, they have expectations, and we're excited to be able to communicate this new vision out to the university.